You have eaten raw oysters, maybe not recently, maybe not often, but you have sat at a table with a tray of ice in front of you, little shells arranged in a circle, a wedge of lemon on the side, and you picked one up, tipped it back, and swallowed it without thinking twice. Maybe someone told you they were fresh. Maybe the menu said local. Maybe the restaurant had been there for 30 years, and that felt like a kind of guarantee. David Morales had eaten oysters his entire life. He grew up in Tampa. He knew the Gulf. He had been eating fresh oysters from the Gulf of Mexico since he was 12 years old, sitting at a picnic table outside a seafood shack with his father. He loved them. He ordered them whenever he could. He had never once gotten sick. He was 54 years old on the Saturday he sat down at a restaurant on the waterfront in Tampa Bay and ordered a dozen raw oysters. By the following morning, he was in an emergency room. 18 hours after he swallowed the last oyster, surgeons amputated his left leg below the knee. David Morales ran a landscaping company. He had built it himself over 20 years, starting with one truck and a used mower, growing it to a crew of 14 and contracts across 3 counties in the Tampa Bay area. He was the kind of man who drove to job sites at 6 in the morning and remembered the names of every one of his employees' children. He was not a man who got sick. In 20 years of running his own business, he had never missed a single day of work due to illness. What he did not know was that his liver was not working the way it should. Years of social drinking, not heavy by any standard he would have used, a beer or two after work, a glass of wine with dinner, a few drinks on weekends at a cookout or a game. Nothing he would have called a problem, nothing his friends would have called a problem. But over 30 years, the cumulative effect of regular alcohol on the liver is not nothing. It is slow. It is silent. It does not announce itself. It replaces healthy tissue with scar tissue, cell by cell, year by year, without a single symptom to mark the change. 3 months before the Saturday in question, a routine blood panel had come back with elevated liver enzymes. His doctor referred him to a gastroenterologist. The gastroenterologist diagnosed early-stage cirrhosis. He told David to stop drinking, to follow up in 6 months, and to be careful with certain foods. He gave him a list. David had not eaten oysters since that appointment. He had been careful. He had been trying to do the right thing. On that Saturday, he went out to dinner with 2 old friends he had not seen in over a year. His friends ordered a dozen oysters. He hesitated. They looked the way they always looked, ice cold, clean, a squeeze of lemon and some hot sauce on the side. His friends ate them without a second thought. After a moment, David ordered a dozen too. Remember that hesitation? He almost didn't. The oysters on that table came from approved harvest areas in the Gulf of Mexico. They had been inspected, shipped on ice, and met every regulatory requirement the state of Florida and the federal government apply to raw shellfish. The restaurant had passed its last health inspection. The handling was correct. The temperature was correct. The chain of custody was documented and clean. None of that matters when it comes to Vibrio vulnificus, because Vibrio vulnificus is not a contamination. It is not something that enters oysters because of a failure in the supply chain or a sanitation error at the farm. It is naturally present in warm saltwater. It belongs there, in the water column, in the sediment, in the bodies of filter feeders who spend their entire lives pulling water through themselves. An oyster filters up to 50 gallons of seawater per day. It does not choose what it filters. Everything in that water passes through the oyster's body, and some portion of it is retained. In a single raw oyster from Gulf Coast waters during the warm months, you may be consuming tens of thousands of Vibrio vulnificus bacteria. There is no way to see this. There is no way to smell it. The oyster looks exactly as it should. It tastes exactly as it should. The approved harvest designation tells you the water was not contaminated with sewage. It tells you nothing about Vibrio vulnificus, because Vibrio is not sewage contamination. It is native to the water. Approving the harvest area for fecal coliform and calling the oysters safe from Vibrio is like testing a road for potholes and calling it safe from ice. You tested for the wrong thing. Vibrio vulnificus cannot be eliminated from raw oysters without cooking them. When you eat a raw oyster, you are eating whatever was living inside it. In healthy people with normal liver function, Vibrio vulnificus from raw oysters typically causes gastroenteritis, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, Fever, severe but survivable. The body contains it. The infection stays in the digestive tract and resolves on its own. In people with liver disease, the picture is entirely different. The liver produces proteins that bind iron in the bloodstream and lock it away from pathogens. Free iron is fuel for bacteria. The liver's iron-binding proteins exist specifically to starve invaders of that fuel. Vibrio vulnificus produces molecules called siderophores that strip iron directly from the body's own proteins, pulling it free from the tissue of the host. In a healthy liver, the body produces enough to compete. The Vibrio is starved. The infection is contained. In a liver compromised by cirrhosis, production of these proteins is significantly reduced. The Vibrio siderophores win. The bacteria accesses iron, and then it begins to replicate at a speed that almost no other foodborne pathogen can match. It doubles in population approximately every 9 minutes in the bloodstream. Every 9 minutes. By the time symptoms appear, the bacteria has already been circulating in the blood for hours. By the time symptoms are severe enough to bring someone to a hospital, the cascade has in many cases already gone further than medicine can easily stop. There is no slow build with Vibrio vulnificus in a compromised host. There is exposure, and then there is a race the patient does not know they are running. David Morales felt fine. Saturday evening, he finished dinner, drove home, watched a game. He went to bed at 11. He woke at 3 in the morning with nausea that brought him to the bathroom immediately. He vomited twice and sat on the bathroom floor in the dark, sweating through his shirt, trying to determine what from dinner had done this. He considered the oysters briefly and dismissed the idea. He had eaten oysters his entire life and never once gotten sick from them. He settled on the shrimp. He took 2 ibuprofen and went back to bed. By 5 in the morning, he had a fever of 103 degrees. By 6:30, a headache was pressing against the back of his eyes with a weight unlike anything he had experienced before. Not the kind that shifts with position or fades with medication, a fixed building pressure that did not move. At 7, he called his wife into the bathroom. She saw something on his left calf that made her call 911 without asking his opinion. There were lesions on his lower leg, 3 of them appearing on skin that had looked completely normal when he went to bed 8 hours earlier. They were not like bruises. They were darker, and the edges were spreading outward in a way she had never seen before. They looked, she said later, like something was happening beneath the surface that the skin was only just starting to show. She was correct. The paramedics arrived 9 minutes later. They noted the lesions, his fever now at 104 degrees, and the rate at which his blood pressure had dropped since his wife first checked it 45 minutes earlier. They started an IV line in the ambulance and radioed ahead. The word they used was sepsis. Vibrio vulnificus produces enzymes that dissolve the structural proteins holding tissue together: hyaluronidase, collagenase, proteases. These are not poisons in the conventional sense. They are tools the bacteria uses to digest the architecture of the human body from the inside and open pathways through tissue faster than the immune system can seal them. The bacteria had entered David's bloodstream in the early morning hours and seeded into the tissue of his lower left leg. Once there, it began destroying the fascia, the thin membrane that surrounds and separates muscle compartments beneath the skin. The fascial plane runs continuously throughout the body. It connects everything. When bacteria that dissolve collagen enter it, they do not encounter a wall, they encounter a highway. Necrotizing fasciitis does not look dramatic from the outside at first. The skin can appear relatively normal when the destruction beneath it is already extensive. By the time visible lesions appear on the surface, the fascia in the surrounding area may already be dead across a wide zone. The infection moves along the fascial plane faster than the tissue above it signals the damage, faster in many documented cases than surgical teams can follow. David Morales arrived at Tampa General Hospital at 7:42 in the morning. The emergency physician examined his leg, saw the lesions, and called for a surgical consult within minutes. The surgeon ordered emergency imaging. The imaging showed gas in the fascial plane. Gas in soft tissue is a specific finding. It means bacteria are producing it as a metabolic byproduct of digesting the surrounding tissue. It means the infection is active and has been progressing for hours. It means the line between living tissue and dead tissue is not stationary. It is moving, and it had been moving since the early hours of the morning, while David Morales lay in bed assuming he had eaten bad shrimp. The surgeon explained the situation to David Morales, who was still conscious and still asking questions, that there was one intervention that could stop the spread: complete surgical removal of all infected and dead tissue, followed by amputation if the infection had moved beyond what debridement alone could control. The surgery lasted 4 hours. They amputated his left leg below the knee. He spent 11 days in the intensive care unit. Vibrio vulnificus had reached his bloodstream before the surgery, requiring aggressive intravenous antibiotics around the clock, a combination of a third-generation cephalosporin and doxycycline. Vibrio septicemia can cause septic shock, multi-organ failure, and death even after the infected limb is removed, because the bacteria is already circulating. What is in the blood has to be fought with medication and time. More than half of the people who arrive at a hospital with Vibrio vulnificus septicemia from eating raw oysters do not leave. In patients with liver disease, the fatality rate exceeds 50%. This is one of the highest case fatality rates of any foodborne pathogen in the developed world, for a bacteria most people have never heard of. David Morales left the ICU on day 11. He was transferred to a rehabilitation facility. 6 months after the surgery, he was fitted with a prosthetic leg. The following spring, he returned to work. He did not order raw oysters again. The FDA has required warning labels on raw shellfish in the United States since 2001. The warning tells people with liver disease, immune disorders, or chronic illness to eat oysters fully cooked. It is required by law. The size of the text is not specified. The placement on the menu is not mandated. In many restaurants, it appears in a corner of the menu in print, smaller than the appetizer descriptions it is meant to protect you from. David Morales had been diagnosed with cirrhosis 3 months before that Saturday. His gastroenterologist had told him to be careful with certain foods. Raw oysters are on that list. He did not remember being told about oysters specifically. The appointment had covered a great deal of information. The warning had not arrived with the weight it deserved. It had not landed as the specific, urgent, this could kill you within hours information that it was. This is not his doctor's fault. This is not David's fault. This is a system that decided a small print label on a restaurant menu is sufficient to protect people from a bacteria that kills more than half the patients it catches. Vibrio vulnificus causes approximately 80 to 100 confirmed infections in the United States every year. Researchers believe the true number is significantly higher because many cases present as rapid onset sepsis of unknown cause, and the connection to raw shellfish is never established. The Gulf of Mexico water temperature has risen measurably over the past 3 decades. Vibrio populations grow with temperature. The months during which Gulf oysters carry the highest Vibrio load are expanding. Cases that historically clustered between May and October are now being documented in early spring and late fall. The approved harvest designation has not changed this. Harvest area approval was never designed to address Vibrio. It cannot be. Vibrio belongs in that water. It has always been there. The only thing that kills Vibrio vulnificus in oysters is heat. Fully cooked oysters steamed, fried to an internal temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit or baked thoroughly are safe. Hot sauce does not kill Vibrio. Lemon juice does not kill Vibrio. Cold does not kill Vibrio. Only heat. If you have liver disease, cirrhosis, hepatitis, diabetes, HIV, cancer, or take immunosuppressive medication for any reason, do not eat raw oysters. Not from a restaurant with a great reputation. Not from a vendor you trust personally. Not ever. For you, the risk is not theoretical. It is a coin that comes up lethal more than half the time. If you drink regularly and have never had a liver function panel, consider asking your doctor for one. It is a blood test. Decades of regular alcohol use can produce significant liver damage with no visible symptoms and no discomfort. Nothing to feel until something else reveals it. David Morales felt fine until 3 in the morning. His liver had been changing for 30 years and he had not known. He ate oysters his entire life and never once got sick. Then he ate them one more time. After 30 years of ordinary drinking had quietly changed something inside him he could not see or feel. And 18 hours later, a surgeon was explaining to him why they had no choice. He had done what he always did. He ordered something he had always loved. He trusted the restaurant. He trusted the ice. He trusted the Gulf. The Gulf was not contaminated. The oysters were not mishandled. The restaurant had done everything correctly. The bacteria was simply there, the way it has always been there in warm salt water, the way it has been for millions of years, waiting in the tissue of a filter feeder for someone whose liver was not quite right, waiting on a bed of ice under a squeeze of lemon, indistinguishable from the safe ones. This is system failure. I will see you in the next waiting room.